There is no point in living together if our life continues like this. That was the last thing Bob, who was once my husband, said to me before our divorce. It was my fault. I was a workaholic and working was my passion. My name is Lisa. I was a product manager, working at the head office of a well-known supermarket. Growing up, I lived with my chronically ill father, just the two of us. We were very poor and barely had enough money to buy food. After graduating from middle school, I immediately started working as a part-time cashier at a local supermarket. Some of my old classmates talked behind my back, saying, "It's sad that our old classmate from a single-father home was only able to finish grade 8 in school and had to work as a cashier." However, Bob, another old classmate of mine, would come to where I work almost every day, buy some food or snacks on his way home from high school, and say, "Hang in there." I continued working at that supermarket since. A few years later, I started going out with Bob and eventually married him. At work, I started off as a cashier and then became a floor manager. Later on, I was promoted to head of the merchandise department in the head office. Being in the food service industry, I had no choice but to work long hours and no weekends or public holidays. Of course, there were no fixed days off for me. So I could hardly find time to do housework, and I was always working when Bob had a day off. We never spent Easter, Thanksgiving, or Christmas together. Of course, having children was put on hold. I thought Bob understood my passion for work. But that was just my wishful thinking. I truly loved him. That was why when he brought up divorce, I couldn't stop crying. But at that time, I had no intention of quitting my job or changing my lifestyle. After divorcing Bob, I rented a new apartment, lived alone, and immersed myself in my work to forget him. 2 years after the divorce, a friend told me he had remarried. I had mixed feelings when I heard that news, but wished him happiness. I continued to build my career, taking on significant roles in the company. And I worked very hard to meet the expectations of those around me. I must have overdone it though, because day by day, I just felt even more tired. Then one day, I suddenly burned out and no longer wanted to go to work. I felt depressed and cried over seemingly mundane things. I knew I had to go to work, but I just couldn't get out of bed. Thinking this was definitely not normal, I decided to see a doctor. "You're probably pushing yourself too hard. You should take a break and rest." "Okay. I'll do that." I got a medical certificate and took some time off from work. After that, I spent most of my day in bed crying and sleeping, with no energy to do anything. As months passed, the idea of returning to work started to cause my anxiety, and my mental health deteriorated further. I can't do this anymore. I decided to resign from the company where I had worked for many years. I felt uneasy about losing years of hard work all at once. But at the same time, after handing in my resignation, I felt a sense of relief. I moved back home thereafter, hoping that would help me recover from depression. After my divorce and resigning from my job, my father was very worried about me. Back at home, I started working part-time at a pharmacy, trying to reintegrate into society. One day, while working at the cash register, I heard a familiar voice, "Lisa." "What?" Looking up at the familiar voice, I saw Bob standing there. It had been several years since we divorced, but he looked at me exactly with the same kind eyes as I remembered from back in the day. "Hi. It's been a while. I feel a bit embarrassed to be seen like this." Bob responded to my flustered comment. "I thought you looked very familiar. I never expected I'd see you again." He looked surprised, with his eyes wide open. He waited for me until my shift ended, and we went to a nearby cafe. At first, we were both nervous, and he made casual comments like, "This coffee is good," and "You always had a sweet tooth." Once we got used to each other, Bob asked, "By the way, why are you working at that pharmacy?" I told him about my overwork and depression, which caused me to quit my old job and to come back home for a change. "That must have been tough. Lisa, you were always such a hard worker." Bob also shared about his life since our divorce. He remarried a woman who had been working at his workplace as a temporary casual worker. However, he ended up divorcing that woman 6 months ago. According to him, she cheated on him. The divorce was the reason for him requesting a transfer to a branch near our hometown. After finishing his story, Bob said, "Well, we both went through a lot, but maybe it's fate that we met again," and he smiled shyly. I involuntarily blushed at his smile. We started going out as friends after that. On our days off, we would go out for drinks or take walks in the neighborhood together. Since the day I met Bob again, I believe I began feeling much better and happier. I used to not even want to go outside, but now I found myself wanting to go out. And I was once again attracted to Bob. I often wondered if he felt the same way. About 6 months after we met again. "I want to give it another shot with you. I love you after all." Bob admitted to have feelings for me again, and we started dating. Of course, we weren't thinking about getting married. I'd hurt him in the past, and he'd been divorced twice. The truth was that we no longer had confidence in ourselves. But then, we decided to move in together. Since then, life became enjoyable, and also my health improved significantly. One day, Bob came home with a skinny little girl. "Hello. I'm Mary." The little girl who greeted me softly turned out to be Bob's child from his previous marriage. She was only 5 years old. I knew Bob had a daughter. However, I was honestly surprised when he suddenly brought her home with him. "Sorry, I didn't have a chance to tell you. It seems her mother left Mary at her grandparents' and then disappeared. So I had to bring her here for now. Hope you're okay with that," Bob said, looking apologetic. "I'm okay. And hello, Mary, I'm Lisa. Nice to meet you," I said to Mary, who was tightly holding Bob's hand, but she avoided eye contact with me. She probably didn't know that her mother abandoned her and was most likely unable to understand why she was brought here. Looking at Mary, who was looking down sadly, I nearly cried. "Do you mind if Mary stays with us for a while?" he asked apologetically, and I replied, "Of course not. I feel like I've got a daughter now. Make yourself at home, Mary." Hearing this, Mary quickly hid behind Bob. It was understandable that she didn't know how to react, since we just met for the first time. I hoped I could slowly build a relationship with her. I explained my situation to my boss at work and took some time off so I could spend time with Mary to get to know each other. At first, Mary seemed reluctant to open up, but gradually she started to smile at me as we played with dolls, and as we go for grocery shopping. One day, when I made her scrambled eggs, which was her favorite food, she said sadly, "Your scrambled eggs are always warm and delicious. Mom only gave me cold food." From the way she talked, it seemed Mary had been neglected by her biological mother. I couldn't understand her mother, making someone as adorable as Mary sad. I told Bob about what Mary said to me. She promised me that she would raise Mary properly. "This is unacceptable," he said angrily. Initially, after the divorce, Bob was seeing Mary every week, but once her kindergarten started, he was only allowed to visit her once a month. Then recently, his visit was reduced to once in a few months. As his visits became less frequent, Mary became more and more quiet, which worried Bob immensely. I had no experience in having or raising a child, but even though I had only known Mary for a short period of time, there was one thing that I was certain. I already loved her very much and wanted to support her in any ways. That child must have been emotionally and mentally hurt so badly. I couldn't believe how horrible person Bob's ex-wife was. My dislike for her grew day by day. Bob was trying to regain custody of Mary, and I helped in every way possible. We tried calling his ex-wife multiple times but never got through. So, it was a huge shock for both of us when she suddenly showed up at our front door. Tall, pretty but with heavy makeup and flashy clothes on, she was the complete opposite of me, and she was shouting at the entrance. "Give Mary back to me, I need her." "What do you mean by I needing her? Didn't you leave her behind for another man?" "Stop kidding yourself," he said, venting his anger. "I broke up with him. I can't be on my own, I'm so lonely, so I want to live with Mary again." I exploded with anger at her selfish words. "What do you think a child is? What a selfish woman you are," I shouted. As we were having a heated argument, Mary came out of her bedroom. "Mommy." "Mary, I'm here to pick you up." "Come here," said Bob's ex. But Mary tightly grasped my hand and said to the woman, "This is my mom, from now on, I'm going to live with Mom Lisa." Come on, she's not your real mom. Obviously you'll be happier with me, so come with me. I could feel Mary's hand trembling. I'll raise your daughter. What matters is who loves her the most. I believe the emotional connection is more important than a blood relation. Mary gripped my hand even more tightly. Feeling abandoned by her own daughter, the woman's face turned red, and blurted out, "You're no good." Then she opened the front door and hurriedly left. After her mother left, Mary looked a bit sad but soon smiled and asked me, "Can I call you Mom?" I was moved to tears by her words. Bob, standing next to me, also looked at us with a gentle smile. Things went smoothly after that, and Bob successfully regained custody of Mary, and the three of us started living peacefully together. I later heard that Bob's ex-wife was being chased by debt collectors, been disowned by her parents, and then disappeared. Half a year later, on Bob's birthday, Mary and I prepared a feast and waited for him to come home. Bob left work on time and rushed home. We had a modest birthday party for him. While enjoying the delicious meal, Mary suddenly spoke. "Daddy? When will Mom Lisa become my real mom?" Both Bob and I blushed at Mary's words. Truth be told, I wanted to become Bob's wife again. And to become the real mother of adorable Mary. Then Mary asked me, "Mom Lisa, do you love Daddy?" "Yes, of course, I love him a lot." Then she asked Bob, "Daddy, you love Mom Lisa, don't you?" With a red face, Bob answered, "Of course, I do." Mary said, "I see. You love each other. Then you two can become husband and wife," and smiled happily. Then Bob said, "Yes," looking into my eyes. My heart started racing at his words. Suddenly, Bob stood up, looked me in the eyes, and asked, "Lisa, please become my wife again. And please be the mother of my lovely Mary." "Yes. I'd be delighted to. This is my dream come true." Mary clapped her hands for us. Soon after, Bob and I got married, and officially we, including Mary, became a family. Even though we broke up once, thanks to Mary, we were able to get back together. From now on, as a family of three, we love to live each day with joy.